Hi everybody, Robert Dyer, and welcome to ArcLight Cinemas in Bethesda, where I'm here to review Suicide Squad, and this is probably the best place to experience Suicide Squad, not only for this poster wall they have in the lobby, but take a look at this Joker-themed cocktail called Beautiful Disaster, which is after a quote of Jared Leto, who said that's what he describes the Joker as. This has Casamigos Blanco Tequila, Midori Liqueur, and lemon and lime juices mixed together. You can see there's plenty of ice there. I would give this 5 stars. It not only is a great tasting cocktail, but it also adds to the movie experience for Suicide Squad. One more reason to see this movie at ArcLight Cinemas is this great collectible jumbo popcorn. I guess you call it a bucket. It's got a handle on it here, and it's got all the main characters of the Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, for those of you who have been off the internet for the last 2 years, first of all, welcome back, and second of all, this is a team of supervillains that's put together by Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, who is actually probably the toughest character in the movie, who pitches this whole idea to the generals and national security people as a safeguard in case, as she says, the next Superman doesn't share our values. But ultimately, once the team is put together, it's a member of the team who accidentally becomes the next threat to the world. Now, the supposed good guys include Rick Flag, who is more of a G.I. Joe type soldier than a Captain America with super strength or anything like that. He's in charge of the Suicide Squad when they go on missions. But as we all know, the stars in the movie are the villains themselves, and no one's been more anticipated than the Joker, played by Jared Leto. And I have to say that I think he did pull off a solid Joker, but he did not get enough screen time, and that's what I think allows people to say he was a disappointment. He was not on the level of Heath Ledger, but he did not have the screen time to really expand on this character or interact with Batman or anybody else to show any more dynamics of the character. Also in this movie, when he's in a scene, he doesn't dominate it the way Heath Ledger would just take over the scene. Everybody else would sort of fade out, and he had way better dialogue than the Joker has in this movie. In fact, his best line in this movie, which you saw in the trailer, doesn't even appear in the movie. From what little we can see that sets him apart from the last Joker is that in some twisted way he cares about somebody other than himself, because his whole appearances in the movie are all that he's trying to get Harley Quinn, bust her out of jail or get her away from the Suicide Squad. So the Heath Ledger Joker, he didn't care about anybody, maybe not even himself. We didn't even know what his, where he came from, what his whole purpose was. He was just chaos in a person, and so there's a little more dimension to this Joker, but we don't really understand what are these places he's hanging out. You definitely wouldn't have seen Heath Ledger's Joker hanging out in a nightclub, or where is he when he's laying on the ground with all the knives around. There's not really, nothing is fleshed out for this movie, so hopefully we're going to see more in the Batman movie. Margot Robbie is perfect casting as Harley Quinn. I knew when I heard about her being cast in this that I was pretty sure she was going to be good in it. If I had to put my list of the top 10 women in Hollywood right now, she's probably #1. Most of her other movies, particularly the big budget ones, she's essentially been arm candy for some guy, and to some extent that's true of this character with the Joker, but this character is much more complex and has a spectrum of, you know, the range of emotions and mentalities is just off the charts, which makes the character so fascinating. And even her previous persona as a psychiatrist may be the most fascinating of all, because depending which origin story you're looking at, I happen to prefer the comic book ones over her original cartoon appearances in the 90s. Her original alter ego is actually very complex. She was supposed to be an intelligent woman. Depending what comic book you read, she has different motivations as to what she was doing in Arkham Asylum and how she gets involved with the Joker. And you get the sense that behind all of this really colorful and outlandish character, there's also this very intelligent woman that's still in there who can be manipulative and also can put that to use, good or bad. So a very formidable character, and hopefully one that is also going to be explored more in her own Harley Quinn movie. One character that I think gets very solidly defined in this movie is Deadshot, played by Will Smith. Now, I was not excited to hear about Will Smith playing Deadshot, but I like some of his movies, but a lot of them I don't like. This one he happened to do very well in, and he really had all the right elements that the character needed. He was believable as Deadshot, which I wasn't sure he could do. And also, now some people were criticizing because the character was white in the comics. I wasn't concerned about Deadshot being black or white. The only thing that it concerned me was that in all the preview materials, he never had any sort of a mask or helmet on like he usually has in the comics, but rest assured he does eventually have it on in the actual movie here. El Diablo is, in this incarnation, is actually a more recent character played by Jay Hernandez. Now, this character seems very stereotypical for a rare Latino superhero. And El Diablo in previous comic book incarnations was more like a Zorro character, and even was a politician, so a successful public official. So this is kind of a big step back to become essentially a gangbanger in East LA. This is somewhat like Eva Longoria, who becomes a successful Latina actress, and the studio says, we're going to let you make a TV show about whatever you want now. You produce it. And is it the Latina president, the Latina CEO? No, it's she makes devious maids about Latinas as maids. So I don't know what you say about that kind of thing, but that's sort of what happens here. But having said that, El Diablo is one of the best characters in this movie. One of the most true, I think possibly the most true, other than Harley Quinn, to the Suicide Squad comics that I've read. It's almost like it's just coming right off the page, and he has a tremendous amount of power. He's probably the most powerful other than the Enchantress on the team, and he also has probably the biggest scene, biggest surprise moment in a superhero movie this year other than Ant-Man. That happens near the end. You'll just have to see that for yourself. But very formidable character, and certainly great to see a Latino superhero on the screen. You have sort of the lesser tier of people, Captain Boomerang, who he was pretty true to the comics, I have to say. Maybe slightly less annoying in this movie than he was in the comics. Killer Croc, a little bit different from some of the comic portrayals. When he gets that hood up, he's almost a dead ringer for Jamie Foxx when he was Electro in Spider-Man, but he actually is a pretty effective member of the team, and he does, by the end of the movie, I think, get some sympathy from the audience. Finally, there's Slipknot, more in the WTF department, whatever that was all about. And then joining the team eventually is another, along with Rick Flag, another good character, so to speak, Katana. Very good performance by the actress, who, this is apparently her first movie, so that's pretty impressive to come into a roster of stars like this and be able to hold your own. And then of course you probably have already seen the Batman appearance in the trailers, and you're going to see one more Justice League member in full uniform, and I enjoyed that. One of my favorite Justice League heroes. Rounding out the team initially is Dr. June Moon, the archaeologist, who you see her going into a temple like Indiana Jones and unleashing some sort of a witch / goddess from some ancient civilization. And of course this gives her sort of a dual personality and tremendous powers as the Enchantress. Cara Delevingne was well cast in this. By the end of the movie, getting reunited with a particular object turns her into essentially a goddess who's now, along with another entity, are the two big threats to the whole planet at this point. And between her acting in that, it's sort of a over-the-top, scenery-chewing type performance, and her acting ability along with the special effects, she's pretty mesmerizing. If you get the idea she's supposed to be a goddess, I think she nailed that part. And actually the Enchantress is, again, the two-sided character is one of the more interesting, much like the Harley Quinn Joker storyline. When you see the archaeology adventure and what the Enchantress is capable of, you're almost thinking, well, now is this movie playing in another theater right now, that this, these two other movies might actually be as good or better as the one that they're in right now. So there's a lot of possibilities here for spin-off movies. Special effects, I think, were pretty good. I thought the action, they didn't have the great thing about Batman and Superman was the great scenes with the not Batman and Superman fighting, but when Batman was fighting large groups of other people, as well as the Batmobile scene. The action scenes weren't quite up to the choreography of those, but they certainly kept things moving along. It was, I thought, well paced, with this exposition of the story and then having also a lot of action at the same time. The cinematography I thought was very appropriate. Dark cities, the bleak prison setting they have, and then you have these colorful scenes with the Joker sort of spliced in here and there. So a lot of people are saying, well, this is worse than Batman and Superman, or it's another Batman versus Superman. I would strongly disagree with that. This was a very entertaining movie. It delivered what it promised. I thought it was, unlike Batman versus Superman, this movie is true to the comics, true to the characters. Nobody did anything that was out of character, whereas you have Batman is almost like a murderer, and he's trying to murder Superman in Batman versus Superman. And in that movie, Superman is not Superman. He's very easily beaten about 3 times in the movie, so that's not the Superman I grew up with. What's really interesting about this movie is that this so-called worst of the worst team, the people that should be killing each other the whole time, they actually get along better and work together better than either the Avengers or the Justice League have to this point. So that's kind of embarrassing. That shows you that how they were off base with the previous Zack Snyder movie, that David Ayer has really pulled off a cohesive, true to the comic book. And maybe part of the problem with this movie's success is that not many people have read the comic books, and I think this is going to be much more enjoyable if you have, but still solid if you haven't. And I think one more thing, if I can go deeper than I've heard anybody go, and even in the elitist newspapers and elsewhere, as to why the sort of elitist critics are down on this movie, aside from their general anti-superhero bias, would be, I think that if you're somebody who may want to push this sort of agenda of victimization, and that everybody in America is hating each other and we all can't get along, that certain categories of people are victims, almost to a character in this movie, every person is where they are by their own choice. They've made decisions. You see Harley Quinn make a decision about joining the Joker. Nobody is a victim. Nobody was hauled off the street and forced to do this. And also it does, I think, reflect the current situation in America, whether it's the terrorist attacks that are a constant threat, or crime, or whatever else. Cities are dangerous places in America quite often, particularly the poorer you are. And frankly, there's some people in America who are telling us today that things couldn't be better and we need to keep going this way. And I don't think many people who aren't at the top would agree with that sentiment. So I think this is a very timely movie. Even in the idea of people being victims because of race or whatever, here you have one of the strongest black female characters in Amanda Waller that's been on the screen in a superhero movie, no less. And this is a woman who is telling the generals what to do, the American leaders. She's even telling Batman what to do and manipulating him. I mean, that's one of the strongest characters in the DC universe. And much like El Diablo, it's a very refreshing change, and something that we frankly need to have more of in comic book movies and regular movies in America. So all around, I would say, unless you've read the Suicide Squad and you don't like the comics, then you may not like this at all. But if you're just looking for a great comic book movie adventure, I would definitely recommend this movie. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Very solid summer movie, and I am excited not only for a sequel to this, but also from what I've seen of the Justice League, that it's possible they may be able to redeem this franchise going forward. So I hope you like this video, share it with your friends, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye everybody.